I don't like cyclists. Hey guys, Lewis from Recycle Bicycle Sales here. I've actually brought in my own personal commuter bike today because I wanted to do a video talking about how to make your commute to work safer and more enjoyable. I think the first thing that we should talk about here is why is commuting by bike better than commuting by car? Honestly, you could go on this topic for hours, but I suppose some of the really common things could be that I think that I rock up to work in a better mood just because I've had some wind in my hair and bugs in my teeth and I've maybe worked up a little bit of a sweat, so I feel like I've earned that commute as well. Or maybe I've earned that coffee that I had along the way. I think it's a lot more enjoyable. I would say that you even get to see different parts of the road and the area that you might not see by car. When you're in the car, when you're on your bike, you're looking out for potholes, you're looking around, you're listening for the birds, all these beautiful things. I think you notice a lot more when you're riding your bike. There's also so many studies showing why cycling is so much better for your mental health than driving in a car. Tip number one is make sure that your bike is in safe and working order. We've got a video coming out in just a couple of days talking about a nice pre-ride safety check. We talk about the M check, but there's more on that in the video coming out soon. But nonetheless, you want to make sure that your bike is nice and safe and serviced. 3 of the most important things I think you have to do before you commute to work are, first of all, check the tire pressure. Even just a simple squeeze test, front and rear. Do they feel low on pressure? If they do, you might need to pump them back up. I think the second thing that I would put in there is saying to make sure that the brakes still work. So simply spinning the wheel, pulling the brake, does the wheel stop? Does the lever pull all the way into the handlebar, or does it feel nice and solid? And we'll check it on the front as well, making sure that the brake still works. I think the third thing is making sure that the headset is nice and tight. We've done a video about how to tighten your headset as well, but to give you a very quick idea, if you grab the front brake while you're pushing the bike back and forth, is there any movement in here? In this example, it all feels very solid to me. If it feels like there's any movement, you absolutely need to tighten your headset. This is the most important safety part of your bike. So if you think there's any movement, check out our video about tightening your headset. The next tip that we have is to make sure that you're wearing the right apparel, the right clothing. That could be making sure that your helmet is nice and safe and it fits you. Perhaps even making sure that it's a nice bright color so that it stands out to cars when they're distracted by all the advertising around the place. So making sure you have a nice safe helmet is one thing. Even just your apparel, your clothes and your pants, wearing bright colors will help cars see you. Reflective is best as well if you can do reflective as well. And I think it's incredibly important to have a light, at least a rear light, but you want to have a front and a rear light just so that, you know, cars can see you and you're nice and safe when you're out there, because it's literally all about exactly that. Be safe, be seen. So we want to make sure that our helmet fits nice and safely. So try and push it down a little bit onto your head so it's all the way where it needs to be. And most helmets will have a little wheel hidden around the back. We can tighten that wheel and you'll feel it get a little bit tighter around your head. Make sure it's nice and tight, but it's not like a tourniquet around your head. You just don't want it to be able to move around. And then the strap, we'll clip that up. Now this is obviously way too loose. I can almost fit my fist underneath there. So I would definitely need to, wherever it is, tighten this little strap as well. My rule of thumb is 2 fingers underneath your chin there. Another top tip is to use bike paths when you can. Bike paths are amazing because you don't have to share them with cars. They're a great invention, definitely use them. You might almost enjoy perhaps looking at either Strava or even there's an app called Ride with GPS. That's this amazing little app that you can type in the area that you want to go to and it can plan a route. If you wanted to perhaps only do bike paths, it can tell you how you can get there. That's an app that I strongly recommend looking into, Ride with GPS. Depending on whereabouts you live, you might have to do a section of road before you get to the bike path. So just be aware of sort of where the bike path starts, maybe the section of road that you have to ride to get there. Is it a freeway? Are bikes allowed on that section of road? All that sort of stuff. Just understand where you're planning on doing your ride. I would also say, try and work out roughly how long it's going to take you. On average, I think most people tend to ride at about 15 kilometers per hour, including stops or, you know, traffic lights or taking a drink of water or something like that. But I would also say, especially if you're running to work, it's always a little bit stressful because you have to be at work on time. Always give yourself a little bit of a buffer, maybe a 10 or 15 minute buffer, just in case you get a flat tire. You know that you've got a bit of time up your sleeve. And really, if you rock up to work 10 or 15 minutes early, what's the worst that could happen? The boss might be happy with you. The 4th tip that we're going to give you is around road awareness. By that, I mean, just in general, having a bit of an idea of what's going on around you while you're out on the road. The first thing I would say here is to stay in the bike lane. Here in Australia, that's on the left side. The second thing that I would say here as well is that Yes, the law is the law, and you're supposed to, give, here in Australia at least, give way to your right, all these sorts of things. However, when you're a bike, unfortunately, it doesn't always work out quite that way. I couldn't count on all my hands and toes and all my friends' hands and toes how many people I've heard that have got hit in a roundabout even though they were in the right. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is if you're riding along and you see a car, just make the assumption that they haven't seen you. Sometimes it could be malicious and, I don't like cyclists, but 9 times out of 10, they simply just might not have even seen you. So just make the assumption that they haven't and just stay out of the way. If you were to get into an impact with a car, I can absolutely promise you that you're gonna come worse off. The third thing that I'd like to talk about is headphones. I know that we all want to listen to our music while we're riding into work, but sometimes I think it's even safer to have a bit of an idea of what's going on around you. Obviously your eyes can see lots of things, but your ears can pick up so many more things as well. So I strongly recommend not wearing headphones if you're on the road. If you're on the trails or the bike paths, maybe that's a different story. You could be blasting your Taylor Swift or whatever it is, but on the roads, I don't reckon you should be wearing headphones at all. I think an important thing for a cyclist riding to work, since we don't have indicators like we do on a car, it's important to be able to take one hand off to be able to point that we're turning one way. So before commuting to work, I'd recommend, even just in the car park in a nice safe environment, to practice riding along with one hand. Could you hold that hand off for a few seconds while still riding in a straight line? Practice a couple of these things before you're going out into traffic, I think. On that same topic about practicing before you're out on the roads, I think another important one is being able to look behind you across both shoulders to see if there's a car coming behind you. Now, the reason that I'm saying you want to practice this before you're out on the road is sometimes when you look, you might wobble a little bit and lose your balance. So I think being able to just turn your head so that you can see what's going on is another little top tip we've got. Sometimes when you're out there riding, something might happen in front of you and you have to stop really quickly. Perhaps you're riding behind an idiot. I think practicing an emergency brake is a really good skill to have. An emergency brake is using both of your brake levers, both the rear one and the front one, at the same time to be able to stop the bike as quickly as you can, being able to really stop on a dime. I recommend practicing this in a nice safe car park. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you've learned some little top tips about how to make your commute to work safer and more enjoyable. We ran through so many different topics here, and I reckon there's a lot of information to unpack there. Otherwise, I hope you've learned something, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See ya.